Have you ever imagined being abandoned by the ones you love most? Mara, a disabled mother, experienced this pain when her own children left her alone and helpless. But what they didn't know was that Mara held a secret capable of completely transforming her life. Mara is a woman of uncommon strength, a mother who has faced the unimaginable and still stands tall. The tragic accident that took her beloved husband's life and robbed her of her right arm not only disrupted her family, but also tested her resilience. She has no time to grieve or succumb to despair. Mara knows she must be strong for her children, Eli and Asa, who now depend entirely on her. Each day is a battle. The house, once vibrant with laughter and love, is now laden with a painful silence. Happy memories haunt the hallways, but Mara refuses to let darkness take over. With only one arm, she learns to perform tasks that were once trivial, from cooking to caring for the house and her children. The physical pain is constant, but the emotional suffering is the true challenge. Every object, every corner of the house, brings memories of her husband, and his absence is a burden she carries silently. Her children, Eli and Asa, deal with the tragedy in different ways. Eli withdraws, drowning in resentment and pain, while Asa tries to maintain a facade of normalcy. Mara notices the change in them, feels the growing distance, but doesn't know how to reach them. The shame they feel about their mother's disability is a blow she didn't expect. The harsh words and disdainful looks from her own children are more painful than losing her arm. Even so, Mara doesn't give up. She rises every day with fierce determination. She wakes before dawn, preparing breakfast with carefully practiced movements. When Eli and Asa enter the kitchen, she greets them with a warm smile, hiding the pain that consumes her heart. Each meal is a small victory, a reminder that despite everything, she can still care for them. Despite the constant pain and heartache, Mara remains an unwavering pillar for her children. She knows she cannot replace their father, but she tries to be enough for both. When Eli and Asa distance themselves from her, Mara feels a sharp pang in her heart, but she never lets it show. She understands that their anger comes from a place of pain and confusion, and waits patiently for the day they can see how much she sacrifices for them. Her strength lies not just in her ability to carry on, but in her ability to love unconditionally, despite all the pain and rejection she faces. Her only wish is to see her children happy and safe. Mara believes that her love and dedication will be enough to keep the family together, but each day brings new challenges. Eli and Asa feel different. The shame they feel about their mother's disability is a pain Mara cannot fully understand. Since the accident, they have become distant, their joyful laughter replaced by uncomfortable silences and averted gazes. Mara notices the change, but it's when Eli and Asa start begging her not to go to school that the blow really hits. Please, Mom, don't go to the parent-teacher meeting, Eli says, his voice trembling with nervousness. Asa, beside him, just nods, avoiding his mother's gaze. Mara feels her heart break a little more with each request. She tries to argue, to explain that she wants to be an active part of their lives, but her children's words are like daggers in her heart. The others will laugh at us, Asa finally confesses, his voice heavy with shame and fear. Mara sees in their eyes the deep insecurity and desperate need for acceptance. She remembers her own childhood, how cruel the school world can be, but the rejection from her own children is a pain she could never have anticipated. They blame her, even if indirectly, for something beyond her control. The disability she now carries as a burden is a constant reminder of the tragedy that shattered their family. Each time they ask her to stay home, Mara feels more isolated and lonely. She starts avoiding school meetings and social events, opting to stay home and ensure everything is in order when they return. Mara dedicates herself even more to household chores, trying to somehow compensate for the shame her children feel. Nights are the hardest. Mara lies in bed, alone with her thoughts. She recalls the happy days before the accident, when Eli and Asa were joyful and full of life. Now, she feels she has lost something precious and irreplaceable. The happy memories are now shadows that weigh on her heart, reminders of a time that seems increasingly distant. She constantly questions herself. Where did I go wrong? What more can I do? But the answers are hard to find. Her children's shame is not something she can fix with simple words or actions. It is a feeling rooted in their own pain, a pain that reflects the tragedy and loss the family has faced. Mara tries to find solace in the little things. She prepares their favorite snacks, meticulously cares for the house, and strives to show that despite everything, she is still a loving and present mother. She smiles when her children come home from school, even when they barely look her in the eye. She desperately hopes that one day, Eli and Asa will see beyond her disability and recognize the love and sacrifice she pours into every action. But for now, she battles the feelings of failure and the constant shadow of rejection. Mara refuses to give up, even when each request for her to stay away deeply wounds her. Mara remembers when the house was a refuge of love and laughter, a place where the sounds of joy filled every corner. The laughter of her children, Eli and Asa, echoed through the walls, creating an environment of happiness and unity. But those days now seem so distant, almost like a dream that unraveled before her eyes. After the accident that took her husband and her right arm, the home's atmosphere changed drastically. Silence became a constant presence, a shadow hovering over every room. Mara notices that Eli and Asa avoid speaking to her more than necessary, and when they do, their words are cold and cutting, filled with resentment. Dinners, which once were moments of sharing and connection, are now marked by heavy silences. Mara prepares the food with care, infusing each dish with love, but the response is always the same: vacant stares and monosyllabic answers. Eli pushes the food around his plate without enthusiasm, while Asa seems always lost in his own thoughts. How was school today? Mara asks, trying to break the barrier of silence that has formed between them. Eli shrugs, not lifting his eyes. Normal, he replies, his voice devoid of emotion. Asa just mumbles something inaudible and continues to eat in silence. Every word Mara tries to say seems like a futile effort, an attempt to reach hearts that have closed off to her. Her children's coldness is a constant pain, a wound that never seems to heal. She misses the spontaneous hugs, the shared laughter, the conversations that went on late into the night. Eli and Asa, once boys full of life, are now bitter, distant teenagers. Mara knows they blame her for the accident, even though they never say it out loud. The weight of guilt and resentment is crushing, creating a barrier that seems impossible to overcome. They avoid her, preferring to spend time away from home, returning only to eat and sleep. The arguments, when they happen, are quick and intense. You never understand anything. Eli shouts one night, his voice filled with frustration. Asa just watches, his eyes full of silent sadness. Mara feels every word like a stab. Mara tries to keep the house in order, as a way to maintain some sense of normalcy, but the feeling of emptiness is overwhelming. She tidies the rooms, cleans the living room, cooks nutritious meals, all in the hope that one day, her children will realize how much she loves them and how hard she is fighting for them. But each day is a battle against loneliness and rejection. The nights are the hardest. She remembers when Eli and Asa were little, how they would run to her room after a nightmare, seeking comfort. The tragedy that shattered Mara's family left not just physical scars, but created an emotional chasm between her and her sons, Eli and Asa. After their father's death, Mara's heart breaks into 1,000 pieces as she realizes her children blame her for the accident. Eli and Asa, once sweet and loving teenagers, are now unrecognizable. Their gazes are cold, filled with a painful malice Mara never imagined seeing in their faces. She struggles to keep the household running, trying desperately to recreate an environment of normalcy and love, but all she receives in return are cutting words and gestures of contempt. What hurts Mara most is the coldness with which her children treat her. They avoid her touch, as if simply being near her is unbearable. Eli becomes increasingly withdrawn, hiding in his room or staying out for hours, coming home late without a word about where he's been. Asa, on the other hand, hurls acidic comments and disdainful looks whenever Mara tries to get close. "You're the reason Dad isn't here anymore," Asa accuses one night, his voice dripping with venom. Eli just nods in agreement, his silence as accusatory as Asa's words. Mara's heart shatters with each accusation, but she tries to stay strong, knowing that giving in to the pain would only confirm what her children believe. Mara tries to explain, to tell her side of the story, but her words are met with sarcasm and disbelief. "If you hadn't insisted on driving that night, he'd still be alive," Asa says, his voice trembling with repressed emotion. Eli remains silent, but the look he gives Mara is filled with a bitterness that cuts deeper than any word. She feels that with each passing day, she loses a little more of her children, as if the chasm between them is widening, making any attempt at reconciliation seem impossible. Mara knows that Eli and Asa's resentment is not just because of their father's death, but also because of the loss of what their family used to be. Their behavior becomes crueler over time. Asa doesn't miss an opportunity to belittle Mara, whether by commenting on her disability or throwing in her face how much she has failed as a mother. "You're useless," he says. His words are like knives. Eli, though more reserved, is no less cruel. He completely ignores Mara, acting as if she were invisible, a ghost he refuses to acknowledge. Mara remembers a day when she tried to make a special dinner, hoping to bring some joy back into the house. She spent hours in the kitchen, preparing her children's favorite foods, but when Eli and Asa arrived, their expressions were of pure indifference. Asa glanced at the set table and laughed bitterly. "Why do you even bother? Nothing you do will bring him back." Eli said nothing, but his silence was deafening, a rejection that hurt more than any words. As Eli and Asa grow older, the hatred they feel for Mara intensifies, and the house that was once full of love and laughter becomes a true battleground. The brothers unite in their disdain for Mara. Asa, with his sharp tongue, never misses an opportunity to wound her with words. "You're the reason our life is hell," he shouts on a particularly tense night. Silence is also a powerful weapon in the house. After a heated argument, the ensuing silences are more painful than the words spoken. Eli and Asa lock themselves in their rooms, leaving Mara alone with her thoughts and pain. She walks through the house, trying to find a trace of the love that once existed there, but all she finds are painful memories and the constant reminder of her loss. Confrontations are frequent. Mara remembers a night when she tried to talk to Eli about his feelings, hoping to break the ice that had formed between them. "I'm sorry for everything," she begins, her voice trembling. Eli interrupts her with a look of disdain. "Being sorry won't bring Dad back," he replies, turning his back and leaving Mara alone with her tears. Asa is even more cruel. During an argument about his grades at school, he accuses Mara of being the reason he can't concentrate. "How can I think about anything when I know you're the one to blame for everything?" Mara tries to argue, but her words are drowned out by Asa's hatred. She feels like she's constantly defending herself in a court where she has already been condemned without trial. Each day, her children's hatred seems to grow. The arguments become more frequent and more intense. Asa starts staying out longer, coming home late at night with the smell of alcohol on his breath. Mara tries to talk to him about his behavior, but he just laughs in her face, saying she has no right to tell him what to do. Eli's behavior changes as well. He becomes more reclusive, spending hours locked in his room, coming out only to eat and go to school. When Mara tries to talk to him, he ignores her completely, as if she doesn't exist. His silence is deafening, a constant reminder that she has lost not only her husband but also her children. Consumed by greed, hatred, and resentment, Eli and Asa hatch a cruel plan to get rid of Mara. The constant arguments and the atmosphere of animosity in the house are not enough. They want something more. They want the house, Mara's last refuge, for themselves. Driven by coldness and relentless determination, the brothers begin to put their plan into action. Mara realizes something is wrong when one day, Eli and Asa start treating her with unusual kindness. The harsh words and cruel silences give way to unexpectedly gentle behavior. Asa, with his piercing gaze, now calls her mom in a soft manner, and Eli starts helping her with household chores. Mara, though suspicious, feels a glimmer of hope. Maybe, finally, her children are trying to reconnect with her. But this hope is short-lived. On a gloomy afternoon, Asa and Eli convince her to go for a walk. Let's go for a drive, Mom. It's been a while since we went out together, Asa says with a smile that doesn't reach his eyes. Mara, wanting to believe in the change, agrees. She dresses carefully, eager to spend time with her sons. The car ride is silent, but Mara doesn't mind. She clings to the thought that this might be an opportunity to mend things. However, as they drive, the familiar scenery begins to fade, giving way to deserted roads and desolate landscapes. Where are we going? Mara asks, the unease growing in her chest. Eli, who is driving, doesn't answer. Asa, beside her, just looks out the window, avoiding her gaze. When they finally reach their destination, Mara feels a chill run down her spine. They are in front of an abandoned house, a place that seems to have been forgotten by time. Asa and Eli get out of the car, and she follows them, still not understanding what is happening. They lead her to the entrance of the dilapidated house. What are we doing here? As she asks, her voice trembling. Eli pulls some papers from his pocket and hands them to Mara. You need to sign this, Mom, he says, emotionless. Mara takes the papers, her hands shaking. What is this? She asks, suspicion clear in her voice. Asa, impatient, responds, it's to transfer the house to our names. Only then can we take better care of you. Mara feels her heart tighten. Why do you want to do this? She looks from one son to the other, searching for some trace of the love they once shared. Trust us, Mom, Eli insists, pushing the pen towards her. His voice is cold, devoid of any affection. Just sign. With tears in her eyes, Mara signs the papers. Her heart is heavy, filled with a deep sense of betrayal. Asa and Eli take the documents, exchanging complicit glances. Without another word, they push her into the house. What are you doing? Mara cries, her voice breaking with despair. Eli and Asa leave, locking the door behind them. Mara runs to the window, watching them drive away, leaving her alone in that abandoned place. The reality of the situation begins to sink in. She is alone, betrayed by those she loved the most. The silence around her is crushing, interrupted only by the distant sound of the car driving away. Inside the house, Mara feels the weight of betrayal. Every corner of the ruined place seems to echo her pain. She sits on the cold floor, hugging her knees, tears falling freely. The emptiness around her reflects the emptiness she feels inside. Eli and Asa, her own sons, abandoned her in such a cruel way. Night falls, and the darkness around Mara seems to swallow everything. She thinks about the moments they shared, the laughs and hugs that now seem to belong to another life. Betrayal is a poison that runs through your veins, and the pain is almost unbearable. But even in the darkness, a small flame of determination begins to shine. Mara knows she needs to find a way to survive, to overcome this betrayal. Mara, feeling betrayed and desolate after being abandoned by her children, seeks strength from a last resort, a longtime friend, Rachel. Shaking with cold and fear, Mara takes her cell phone with a shaking hand and dials Rachel's number. Her voice barely manages to come out, suffocated by anguish. Rachel, please, I need help, she says, and immediately, the familiar, comforting sound of Rachel on the other end brings a small spark of hope. Rachel, upon hearing Mara's trembling voice, doesn't hesitate. She lives miles away, but doesn't let distance be an obstacle. Mara, stay calm. I'll pick you up. Where are you? Rachel assures, her voice full of concern and determination. With the necessary information, Rachel gets in the car and drives off, every mile she travels a promise of rescue and comfort. As she waits, Mara feels time slowly passing by. Every minute seems like an eternity, and the loneliness of the place amplifies her pain. She looks around the abandoned house, feeling the cold walls and oppressive silence. The echo of her children's cruel words still resonates in her mind, and she fights back the tears that insist on falling. But she clings to hope, knowing Rachel is on her way. Finally, the sound of an approaching car breaks the silence. Mara gets up with difficulty and goes towards the sound. When she sees Rachel's car, a wave of relief and excitement washes over her. Rachel quickly gets out of the car and runs to hug Mara. "I'm here now, Mara. It's going to be okay," she says, wrapping her in a tight hug. On the way back, Rachel keeps a hand on Mara's shoulder, offering comfort and reassurance. Mara feels exhausted, but Rachel's presence at her side is a balm for her wounded soul. Arriving at Rachel's house, Mara is received with affection and warmth. The house, with its warm and welcoming atmosphere, is a comforting contrast to the place where it was abandoned. Rachel makes herself some hot tea and sits next to Mara, listening patiently as she vents. The words come out broken by tears, but Rachel remains by her side, offering comfort and support. "You are strong, Mara. We will get through this together," says Rachel, her words full of sincerity and encouragement. As the days pass, Rachel takes care of Mara with unwavering dedication. She gives her a comfortable room, prepares nutritious meals, and does everything in her power to ease Mara's pain. Little by little, Mara begins to feel a little stronger, although the wound of betrayal is still deep. Rachel encourages her to rest and regain her strength, constantly reminding her that she is not alone. During the long nights, when the silence of the house brings back painful memories, Rachel stays by Mara's side, holding her hand and making sure she never feels abandoned again. They spend hours talking, remembering the good times and making plans for the future. Rachel reminds Mara of her own resilience and strength, and every day, Mara begins to believe in herself a little more. Rachel also involves Mara in activities that help her take her mind off things and find some relief. They walk together in the garden, take care of the plants, and even try new recipes in the kitchen. Each small activity is a step toward Mara's emotional recovery, and Rachel's constant presence is a reminder that there is love and support in her life, even though her children have abandoned her. Eli and Asa, driven by insatiable greed, feel an intoxicating euphoria upon realizing that they now own a valuable home. For them, Mara's signature on the property transfer documents is more than a victory. It is an entry ticket to a life of luxury and pleasure. Completely ignoring their mother's pain and sacrifice, the brothers see only a bright future full of excess. As soon as the sale of the house is finalized and the money reaches their hands, Eli and Asa dive headlong into a life of opulence. The feeling of power and freedom is overwhelming. They exchange modest comfort for five-star hotels, buy designer clothes and luxury cars, and engage in endless parties. Each night turns into a parade of extravagance, where champagne flows like water and loud music drowns out any thoughts of remorse or guilt. Eli parades through the streets with his new acquisitions, savoring every envious look he receives. Asa, on the other hand, finds pleasure in accumulating luxurious experiences, traveling to exotic destinations, and staying in the most expensive resorts. Together, the brothers seem to be living a dream, a fairy tale of instant wealth that seems to have no end. Amid the darkness of her grief, Mara finds a spark of hope as she shares her burden with Rachel, her trusted friend. Her words reveal a secret kept under lock and key. For Mara, revealing this truth is like lifting a weight off her shoulders. Mara talks about a secret investment she and her late husband made before the accident. The trust placed in Rachel is a ray of light in the darkness, a reminder that even when she feels most isolated, Mara is not alone. She has someone by her side, willing to listen and offer unconditional support. As the conversation unfolds, Mara feels a mix of conflicting emotions. There is a spark of optimism, a small belief that perhaps there is a light at the end of the tunnel. Determined to turn the long-kept secret into an opportunity for change, Mara takes the first step towards her financial independence. With a mix of nervousness and determination, Rachel takes her to the registry office. There she takes the land documents and holds it with her shaking hands. The news that Rachel, Mara's loyal friend and confidant, has managed to find a millionaire buyer for the land is like a ray of sunshine breaking through the dark clouds that have been hanging over Mara's life. It's a time of hope and renewal, a sign that the universe is finally conspiring in her favor. For Mara, this revelation is a welcome relief, a confirmation that her decisions are beginning to bear fruit. It's a mixture of gratitude and surprise, as she never would have imagined her situation could change so quickly. It's as if a burden has been lifted from her shoulders, allowing her to breathe more freely. Upon hearing the news, Mara feels a comforting warmth spread through her chest, a feeling that, perhaps, things are finally starting to fall into place. She decides to embrace this opportunity with courage and determination. Mara feels a lump form in her throat as she faces the process of selling the land. She clings to the hope that this transaction will be the turning point she so desperately needs. When the documents are finally officially transferred, a wave of relief mixed with anxiety washes over her. It's like a weight has been lifted from her shoulders, but she still has to face what comes next. With the check in hand, Mara feels a mixture of gratitude and disbelief at the significant amount that is now hers. With the money from the sale, Mara makes a bold decision: buy a new house. It's an audacious step, but also proof of her determination to rebuild her life from scratch. Furthermore, Mara decides to invest part of the money in a small business, something that has always been her dream, but which she never had the opportunity to pursue. It's a leap of faith, but also a source of empowerment, as she refuses to let circumstances stop her from achieving her goals. As the business begins to take off, Mara finds herself embarked on a new journey of self-discovery and fulfillment. Every sale is a victory, every satisfied customer is a reminder that she is capable of overcoming any challenge life throws at her. Mara finds herself facing a new chapter in her life. Her newfound independence is like a fire inside her, igniting her soul with renewed energy. She dives headfirst into work, finding it not only a source of sustenance, but also an outlet for the tumultuous emotions that consume her. Every step Mara takes towards rebuilding her life is an affirmation of her inner strength. She refuses to be defined by circumstances or the actions of others. Instead, she clings to the power of autonomy, embracing the freedom that comes with the ability to stand on her own 2 feet. As she delves deeper into her work, Mara finds solace in the comforting routine and sense of purpose it provides. It's as if each task completed is a small step towards healing, a reminder that she is capable of overcoming any challenge life throws at her. Meanwhile, her children don't even remember that she exists. However, behind every impulsive purchase and every night of partying, an inevitable truth hides. Money, however abundant it may seem, is not infinite. The greed that drives them also begins to be her undoing. They spend mindlessly, believing that the fund of wealth is inexhaustible. Reality, however, slowly begins to creep in. The bills pile up, and the extravagances that once gave them pleasure now begin to turn into an ominous shadow of responsibility and debt. As expenses increase, tension between Eli and Asa also grows. They begin to realize that their fortune is not multiplying as they expected. Arguments about money become frequent, with each person blaming the other for running out of funds. Asa accuses Eli of being reckless, while Eli accuses Asa of being overly extravagant. The initial euphoria is replaced by a growing sense of despair and frustration. The friends who once surrounded Eli and Asa in search of fun and luxury begin to disappear. Without the shine of wealth to attract, the brothers find themselves increasingly isolated. The grand parties and expensive dinners are replaced by silent nights where the reality of their situation finally begins to weigh on them. What once seemed like a fairy tale life now turns out to be a golden trap, made up of thoughtless choices and selfish decisions. Meanwhile, Mara's figure remains like a specter in the brothers' minds. Every memory of her brings a mix of guilt and anger, feelings they try to suppress but which constantly resurface. The image of her mother, betrayed and abandoned, is a constant reminder of the depth of her betrayal. But instead of facing this feeling, they choose to wallow even deeper in their own frustrations, unable to admit the mistake they made. Money that once seemed to be the solution to all problems has now become the center of a new crisis. The greed that drove Eli and Asa to betray their own mother is also the force that drives them to the brink of collapse. They begin to sell the goods they so enthusiastically acquired, desperately trying to regain some sense of stability. But each sale is a painful reminder of your failure, an admission that wealth cannot buy peace or happiness. Eli and Asa learned, the hard way, that true wealth is not in money or material possessions, but in the relationships and love that once brought them together as a family. The house they sold represented not only a physical home, but also emotional security and the family bond that is now irrevocably broken. As the months pass, Mara's small business begins to blossom, like a resilient flower sprouting through rough concrete. Each satisfied customer is a small victory, a confirmation that she is on the right path. The smile of gratitude on their faces is a constant reminder that their hard work is worth it. As word of mouth spreads, Mara's name begins to echo through the city's streets. She becomes a familiar figure, a symbol of resilience and success in a community that often underestimates the power of ordinary people to overcome great challenges. The recognition she receives is like a balm for her weary soul, a confirmation that she is not alone. As time passes, Mara's success serves as an inspiration to others around her. She becomes a living example that it is possible to overcome adversity and reach great heights, even when everything seems to be against you. Her story is a powerful reminder that true strength lies within each of us, waiting to be discovered and nurtured. If you like this story, be sure to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any of our touching stories. And tell me in the comments what you would have done if you were in Mara's place. Would he have forgiven his children after everything they did? Stay now with another exciting story.